We are going to start 2026 with zero baggage whatsoever. I have put all of my works in progress on this chest of drawers behind me, and there they shall remain for the next 8 days whilst I try and get through as many of them as I possibly can. I was going to count up exactly how many works in progress and projects I have before I started this video, but honestly I found that so overwhelming. I'm just going to have to count them up at the end. Hi, it is Becky from the future, and I'm here to tell you that it was 29 projects. 29. I have already sorted them into 4 piles. Finish, pretty self-explanatory. Frog, also pretty self-explanatory. Fix, a little bit more complicated, but there's some projects there that need to be darned, patched, generally repaired, and then a couple where I've got some ideas that I'm going to tell you about and run you through. And figure it out. Those are things that I don't quite yet know what I'm going to do with them, and I'm hoping over the course of the next 8 days, inspiration will strike, and then I'll suddenly magically know what I'm going to do. We've not got a lot of time, so I'm just going to get straight into it. This is a failed test knit from many years ago. I was originally going to be making something called the Alice Blouse, which was by insert designer name here. I'll put it up on screen. And that was a sort of sweater design with slightly long, puffy sleeves down the side. I lost a bit of faith in this for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to put it on and tell you why. You might be able to tell, but there's a bit of a colour change, maybe halfway down, where the blue seems to go from one colour to the next. And that I didn't notice for a really long time until a friend of mine, who obviously has a lot better sense of colour than I do, said, "Oh, is it supposed to be a gradient top?" And I said, "No, it's not. It's not supposed to be a gradient top." So I lost a bit of love for it. I then used a lot of this yarn for some other projects, and it meant that I didn't have enough to make the long sleeves the way that I liked. So I thought what I'll do is kind of modify this into a sort of vest shape and then see how that looks. I have already done this one sleeve here, and I just need to finish off on my left hand sleeve, and then I'm also going to try and do some embroidery over it to slightly reduce the impact of the colour change visually, but also I think to make this a little bit more interesting. And I have some concepts for what I'm going to do, which I'll talk to you about when I get there. I spent that afternoon finishing off the second armhole, which actually took a little bit longer than expected because I tried to cast off one row too early and then had to undo Italian bind off with 2 strands of mohair, which is absolutely not it, but eventually that did get done. I was meeting up with some friends that evening, so I took the project out for the journey and wove in all of the ends whilst I did so, and then when I got home I managed to get it blocked and out onto the mats. So it is day 2, and just whilst Alice is on the blocking mat before I do the embroidery, I'm going to introduce project number 2. Lanark is all blocked and ready to just have the zipper sewn in. I have found this zipper, which is pretty much exactly right for where it needs to go here. There's this sort of facing bit that I need to sew down first. Then this will go in to the pocket that's created here around the neckline. And then I just need to pin the zip in place and sew it through. And then it will be totally complete. The pattern actually has a really good video tutorial on how to do all of these steps, so I'm not going to explain all of it here because if you do make this pattern then you can go ahead and just watch that. What I will say is that sewing down this facing was actually a really oddly satisfying process. I'm obviously using the same yarn that I knit the whole jumper in, and then when you're done you've got this really satisfying, neat looking space where the zipper goes straight in. I think this also stops it from being too irritable on the skin to have the zipper in place, and that's definitely what I found in terms of wearing it. since I finished it. To do this, you obviously need to have quite a lot of hand sewing supplies. And I don't know how common this is that knitters just have all of this to hand, but it's just standard stuff that you'd have in a typical sewing kit. So pins, scissors, thread, obviously a set of needles as well. And then what you would do is try and match that thread as much as possible to the jumper, which is what I tried to do, even though it's obviously quite a different colour. And then pinning it all in place and sewing it down, making sure that you don't get the zip teeth too close to the edge of the knitting. And then you will be able to easily run the zip up and down. Finished Lanark sweater. Only took me a full year to make this. However, that is only one project that is done in 2 days, so I think I need to pick up the pace a little bit, and I know which one I'm going to do next. This is a shirt that I really like. I think that the embroidery down the collar is super fun, and I used to wear this all the time, but I haven't worn it in a really long time because one of the buttons from this side came off. I don't think I have the exact same type of button, so what I'm going to have to do is just have a look and a root round in my button box and see if there's something that will match, and then I will put that on and that'll be another one done. But hopefully that can get done this afternoon and that'll be quite quick. I actually couldn't find a button that was both the right size and which I liked the look of, so I ended up swapping buttons on the shirt because the top bit of the collar actually covers some of the old ones. So if I put a button in place that was completely different from the rest, it would be a lot less noticeable up there. I did end up using this like bright pink thread to sew it on because I couldn't find any white thread anymore. But honestly, I thought it looked quite good, and it's more important to me that it's like functional than that it looks like a perfect mend anyway. So this is what it looks like finished. The thread is obviously a little bit noticeable, but I actually don't mind. I think it matches with the embroidery quite well, and obviously I know that I've fixed it, so I don't mind. Please excuse all the cat hair. And that button I took from up here where I've replaced it with the spare button I just happen to have. So yeah, that's the second completed project. I was craving another super quick win, so I decided to do this darning up project on a machine knit secondhand top that I've had for a long while. I've honestly been procrastinating this for years, but I have the exact right type of yarn in stash, and all it needed was me to sew up the holes and then I could wear her again. And that's project number 3 complete. I did a little mend on a seam back here at the back of the shoulder, which you might be able to see. I think it's about there. And also one around the neckline, but I've genuinely lost it, so I can't show you that. This is such a good top actually as a staple in the wardrobe. I just feel like it goes with everything. So I am very glad to have that done and have it back. Let me introduce you to project number 5. So I originally put Mosspath in the finish it category, but I think that was ambitious even by the scale of what I'm trying to do here. And really what I want to achieve over the course of this video is to understand what I'm going to do next. I have been knitting this for a while and I've got one sleeve already, but I don't massively like this sleeve. I didn't want it to be too bubbled, and I feel like with the ribbing at the end it's kind of got this like balloon shape, whereas I'd much rather it was a sort of straight, even taper down. And I think this is actually even a bit too big and baggy for my liking. So the question is whether I do the second sleeve in the same way, or if I try and do the second sleeve in a slightly different manner, like tapering down a little bit differently, and whether I do the ribbing differently as well. To try and understand that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a block. I think I want to give it a steam block rather than give it a wet block, just because that'll be a bit faster and then I can get a sense a bit quicker of whether I like it or not. As soon as I started doing this, it became really clear that steam blocking wasn't going to cut it. So just like Achilles being dipped in the river Styx, I ended up wet blocking only the arm of the Mosspath cardigan. Because of how dense the fabric is, I knew that this might take quite a long time to dry as I'd pinned it out. So I had to have a rifle through my other projects and pick out something new to repair. This cardigan has also patiently been waiting for me to repair this little hole at the elbow. I didn't make the cardigan myself, so I had a fish through stash and eventually settled on this red held together with a kind of silvery thread that I have to do this imitation knit style darn on the elbow. So it is day number 4, and that is project number 4 all done. I'm just going to put this on and show you what I like about this cardigan. Honestly, yesterday when I was darning this in the pub with my friends, every single one of those people around the table could remember me wearing this when I was a teenager. And it gave me a bit of nostalgia for the girl that bought this. And I think that sometimes you owe it to clothes that you've loved to keep loving them. And you owe it to your past self to take care of something that was worn every day by that past self. And this is an example of that. But it is a little bit ratty now. I also did some cleaning up of it, just taking off some of the general fuzz and depilling it a bit. Nothing too heavy, but just a little bit of light tidying. But anyway, goes back in my wardrobe to be worn many times and times again when I feel like that young teenage girl. This top, I made it, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and it really hasn't gotten the wear that I expected it to. I didn't really think that much about things like the right yarn choice for the right project when I was doing it. So this is like a linen, cotton, bamboo blend, and basically the top was supposed to be negative ease, and because I made it in this fabric, it grew a massive amount and it stretched, and it's now, you can see, definitely not a negative ease garment on me. For ages I've had this plan that I was going to try and turn it into a kind of little spring cardigan, and what that means is cutting the knitting down a sort of central line on the front and picking up for a button band. I've never done any steeking before, but everything I've been reading about it has suggested that doing that with a linen, cotton, bamboo, anything, acrylic, anything that's not like heavy, dense animal fibres, you might expect your whole thing to just fall apart. So I've got a bit of a plan for it. I'm going to do, you would do this normally I think anyway, but I'm going to do a crochet reinforcement around either sides of where the cut's going to go. And I also have some hemming tape, which I might use as a backup if the crochet reinforcement looks like it's not going to do its job. So this one might end up being a little bit of a fail, but I'm not wearing this right now, so if it does end up failing, I think nothing really lost. Before I show you that, here is my Alice blouse all blocked. I absolutely love the shape of it. I'm so glad I finished it. I still have to do the embroidery, but maybe that is a job for tomorrow. For now, I set myself up to cut the tumble tee. I was looking for the exact right midpoint on the neckline so that I could start the crochet reinforcement on either side of where the cut is going to be. Once I had that, I could start working the crochet reinforcement from the bottom seam up. This took a really, really long time to do the left and the right side, and I was being really careful on how to do it. I used a video, and I don't normally share links for tutorials or things, but this was so helpful. I will put it in the description box and share it on screen. I basically followed the exact steps laid out by this person, and it has worked really well. Because the light was fast fading whilst I was doing this, I actually left the cutting bit until the next day. I don't know why, I think it was kind of like a superstitious thing where I felt like if I did it in the cold light of day when I was a bit more aware and alert, then it would go a lot better. Having said that, there obviously is actually nothing to be afraid of. All the work that I'd done the day before held everything in place, So whilst I was cutting up that middle line of stitches, I knew that there wasn't going to be any unraveling on either side. And it went really fast and it was really fun. I'm just about to try on my cut top, but before that, happy day 5 and happy 2026. There's no reason why you would have known that, but yes, day 5, it is the 1st of January. And yeah, hope you all had a really good Hogmanay. Mine was very fun, and that is why I'm kind of like a little bit drab feeling today with my spot sticker on. Trying to be authentic, trying to be goblin, trying to be real. I did take one of my projects to the Hogmanay party last night, and I kind of thought I might get it done, but I haven't quite. So actually, I'll show you that first. It is the Alice vest. I mentioned I was going to do some embroidery on the vest just to make it a bit more exciting, which was what I was doing last night. And this is what it looks like so far. It's obviously a kind of starry design, like a sort of starry night kind of idea. And the concept was that I wanted to have the top bit be a bit more kind of clustered with the stars, and then for it to gradually get more sparse and more thin, the starry night, as you go down the vest. So I might add in another couple kind of like at the bottom there underneath the most recent row, and obviously I'm going to like spread the stars out across to the right hand side as well. I'm not going to try it on because I haven't secured the thread properly at the back, and I don't want to like accidentally pull some of it out. But what you'll see what I've done is like a kind of thread embroidery with the star, and then I've also got these little like French knots, which I thought were kind of cute and added a bit more texture. I'm not sure if I'm 100% happy with how they look so far, and I don't know if the answer is more or less. If the answer is less, I'm a little bit in trouble because it's part of long bits of thread that include the stars. But it's taking a bit longer than I actually thought it would. So I'm just going to kind of keep plugging away at that, and then I'll show you it when I consider it to be done. I haven't yet had a look at what this looks like, but it's not very helpful with the mic. But the concept will be, I will pick up for a button band on either side. This will sort of be turned to the back, so I'm going to pick up from a couple of stitches in, and then obviously have the button closed there. Sorry if there's a lot of interference with the mic, I apologise. I think I will also do like a hemming web on the sort of folded seam here, just in order to double make sure that it's secure. I'm not trying to like dramatize cutting your knitting, because obviously lots of people do that. It's an extremely valid way of completing or constructing a project. So it is by no means a like dramatization of that. It is purely because the yarn for this is not like the typical yarn that you would use that technique for. So that's the only reason I'm doing like belt and braces and having the reinforcement and also the hemming web. I think if anybody else was doing it with like the actual animal fibre that you could use, then you just go ahead and do that. So I hope that that ends up working out quite well. I also had a vision of doing a little bit of embroidery on this top as well. I think I said I wanted it to be like a spring cardigan. So I'm toying with some very basic kind of like floral cluster design, which I might add on as well, just to make it a little bit more exciting rather than just having like a kind of simple white cardigan. But I'll see how the button band goes and how long that takes me, and then see if I want to think about that now or maybe like put that on ice for a future project. But I'm really glad that I finally did this. Fingers crossed it all ends up working out really well. And then I will have something back in rotation that has just been like hibernating in a drawer for ages and ages since I made it. I thought I had the exact right type of yarn to do this, but turns out I didn't, and I had to do a bit of matching from some stuff in stash. I have no idea how there can be so many different shades of brilliant white, and yet there are, and I happen to have them all. But having finally found some yarn that was relatively close in composition and in colour, I then had to go and pick up all of the stitches along the cut edge for the button band. This, again, took a little bit of time just because it was a fingering weight project, but actually I was so grateful to have something back on my needles. A lot of the projects I've been working on here have been hand sewing or other forms of crafting, other forms of repair, and it was nice just to be back and knitting again. With both sides done, it was this project's turn to have a go on the blocking mat. It is day 6, and I'm just going to do a quick interlude to do a try on of my Mosspath cardigan, having taken it off the blocking mats. So I'll show you what that looks like just now. Just while I'm kind of untangling all of this and putting it on, I downgraded this from a project to finish to a project that I just need to figure out. And by figure out, what I meant was I need to decide whether I'm going to rip back the first sleeve that I've knitted or whether I'm going to do the second sleeve in the same way. And the reason I didn't like that first one was I just thought it was like a big balloon shape. So I wanted to be, I'm hopeful that with the blocking it's going to be more of the shape that I like. And let's find out. I haven't blocked the whole thing, obviously, because I didn't want to start doing that for like and have half of the body blocked and stuff like that. I just wanted to see what the sleeve looks like. So obviously the body is not in its final state, but the sleeve kind of is. And ooh, oh my god, it is so long. It's super long. I kind of think, looking at this, that what I should really do is finish the body. This, I wasn't able to make it, obviously I wasn't able to make it like shorter through the blocking, but it didn't massively expand either, and neither did my swatch when I did my swatch. So what I could probably do is like do the body to the length that I want it to and finish the ribbing and then put on the collar, the button band, and that might lift this a little bit, because normally when I do a jumper I'll do the neckband and then it tends to be that the sleeve looks the way that you want it to look. But kind of right now this is like a bit of an absurd sleeve. It's just a little bit too long, and I do tend to roll things up, but I don't know if I want to like start that way with something that I don't 100% love. I think the only thing to do is to finish the body. I think that's my solution. This doesn't feel like a satisfying like check off on a project, but I did want to come to a decision around like what the sleeves look like, and I'm just continuing to investigate, I feel like, and find out what it is that I want it to look like, what I'm going to be happy with. And honestly, if I can not redo the sleeve, obviously I'm going to do that. Anything that I do on this in the future will probably be for a future video rather than fixing in this session. So I am going to consider this to be a project checked off, and then we can kind of move on from here and actually get some other things completed. Not everything is a win, guys. Not everything is a satisfying win. In the spirit of not everything is a win, the next one definitely was not a win. This skirt was a test knit, and I don't think I've worn it out even once. There's a couple of reasons why I haven't worn it out, and it's not because I don't necessarily like the pattern, but I did some weird things with it. So I actually don't like the colour for a skirt. I have like nothing to wear this with at all. The orange stripes are just not very me anymore. And also the skirt pattern had in it some like butt shaping around the back, and that I just didn't read. I just assumed I would be the largest size, and then that basically has meant that the skirt is like a good 4 inches short on the front versus at the back. Just, I don't know why I didn't think to measure myself, but I just assumed nobody would have a larger caboose than I do, which obviously was just inaccurate. I also really stupidly made this out of like quite expensive yarn. So it's from La Bien-Aimée. I feel actually really embarrassed saying this because I think it's probably 100 odd pounds worth of yarn that I put into this skirt that I have never worn. And I really recognise that's like a ridiculous position to be in, and that's part of why I want to frog it, because I should actually use that really beautiful yarn for something else. And as I said, I don't really like the colour for a skirt, but I think it might be a really nice top or something else. And I liked the combination, like the colours. This sort of grey colour has little bits of the orange in it, and then I have some of this like more pure orange yarn here, and those I think work quite nicely together and would be like a nice top with a contrast collar or something like that. I also just don't really think it's very me to have a knitted skirt, and I think if you're planning on wearing a knitted skirt, you should actually make it out of something that's a bit more hard wearing. Otherwise, I genuinely was like, I'm not going to be able to sit down wearing this because it's made out of finest merino or whatever it was. So anyway, yeah, it's got to go, and I want to get the yarn back so that I can turn it into something new and beautiful. There's nothing better than frogging a knit when it comes super easily, and I was so worried that I would have sewn it in such a way that would have made it really hard to untangle, but generally it was super easy, and as soon as I got it on my winder, it just quickly balled up. The only thing that was slightly annoying was doing the I-cord, but as soon as I'd undone the end of that, again, that was really fun to watch it just totally unravel. And now I've got all of this beautiful yarn that I can use for another project in the future. Oh, and also this elastic band from an old pair of pants that I'd sewn in, which obviously I'm thrilled to get back. I thought I might be able to just sneak one last one in before the 8 days are up. This is a top that my mum gave me because she used to wear it a lot. So I think it's from the 80s, which would make it obviously about 40 years old now. And it has been well loved in that time. What I've done is every little bit that needs to be repaired, I've just put this little pin and paper in just to remind myself that I need to look at it. Most of it is just rips around seams. I need to put 2 new buttons on, so there's a button missing here. There's been a button missing down there, I think, since I inherited it, but I used to just like tie it around my waist and call that a look, call that a vibe. But when that button popped open there, that was the final straw. The rest of it is, as I say, just like little rips and tears. This fabric is quite like flimsy, quite soft. So I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to fix it without just causing more damage. I'm going to do a little bit of research, but it probably won't be like an invisible thing. Given that the pattern is so striking, it might not matter that much if you can see a little bit of it. I actually gave my mum a ring earlier, not just for this, but I was speaking to her and said, do you mind if I fix this up? And she was like, do whatever you like. You've had it for ages. If you want to turn it into dish rags, be my guest. And I was like, nah. Nah, it's got a few more circles around the sun in it before it becomes dish rags, I think. I ended up settling on patching the main bits of damage with what else but another old pair of pants and some embroidery thread that I had. I also had this embroidery hoop, which was really helpful just in terms of stretching out the fabric so that I could put the patches on in place and be more sure that it wasn't going to pucker in weird ways. I used a whip stitch, which was a much more visible way of attaching the patches onto the shirt, and I really liked the effect that it gave. Obviously, you can see where it was attached, but there was no chance that you wouldn't notice them anyway. One of the reasons why I put off fixing this is because the buttons hadn't just come off the shirt, they actually had created these huge holes, and the buttonholes themselves were damaged. So in some areas, I was patching a spot where a buttonhole used to be and then had to recreate that buttonhole. And then once I'd managed to do that, I was able to reattach the buttons. All in all, I think there were about 9 patches that I had to add. So this wasn't a trivial task, it really did take me all evening, but I was so pleased with the finished result. So I know there'll be people watching this who will be looking at this shirt and just thinking that is the ugliest shirt I've ever seen in my entire life. And those people, I respect your opinion, but I actually think this is my favourite project that I finished in the 8 days. I just think it's like really fun. I think that the patches that I've chosen kind of work with the original pattern, but they also add their own sort of special element to them. Like the little whip stitch that I did around is giving Tim Burton's Corpse Bride, it's giving The Creature. It looks just very fun to me. I really like it. And my favourite bit is, I think it's on this side, the little rose up on this collar. I think that's the best out of all of it. It is the last day of the 8 days that I set myself. I actually don't know what number project I've finished, but I have those 2 that I've already spoken to you about that I'm going to try and get done today, and that is my previous tumble top, now tumble cardigan, and my Alice vest. I have a slight feeling with the Alice vest that I don't like the embroidery, so we're going to see if I come to a conclusion around that this afternoon, if I do something different, or if I just take it back. We will see what happens. One thing that I spent some time on that afternoon in terms of the tumble cardigan was making the neckband a little bit tighter. Because the whole top had been a bit looser than I hoped it would be, especially the neckband looked really flimsy to me. So I wanted it to be a lot closer to the neck and have the whole thing just be a little bit tighter and a little bit sweeter looking. So I did that around the outermost rim of the neck. I just put a sort of single loop of crochet in, and I did the same actually under the underarms as well, just to reduce some of the kind of bat wing effect that I was seeing and hating. Full disclosure, it's been a minute. My computer was broken, so I had to go get it fixed. So I've just been kind of slowly editing this video and fixing up the last 2 projects. Neither of them did get finished in the 8 days, so I think we are fixed on 7 completed out of the full 29. I actually just counted them up this morning, and I love the ambition from myself that I could get all of those 29 done in just 8 days. But anyway, regardless, that actually has made me really motivated to finish off all the rest of them. So I think I'm going to do a little series on my channel around the remaining projects and show you some of those. And I've got some exciting ones that I didn't even get to, including a like trinket cabinet thing that I've been meaning to upcycle for ages, and this old tinsel fluffy top that I want to turn into a bag. So there's loads of ones that I really wish that I'd managed to get to in this video, but I'll get to as part of the series. So if you're interested in watching any of those, then consider subscribing or enabling notifications, and then you won't miss a single one. I am going to show you where I did get to with the Alice blouse and with my tumble cardigan. So with Alice, I did decide in the end just to finish off the embroidery and finish off all the stars on the left hand side. I am really pleased with how this turned out in the end. I think it's actually quite hard to position embroidery exactly where you want it to end up when you're doing it flat and then it ends up on your body, but I think I did a pretty good job. And I did think about getting rid of all of the French knots, but eventually decided to spread them out, keep them, and maybe in the future I'll change that. But at least for now, I think I've got this perfect Starry Night vest, which is pretty much my exact vision. First thing you will notice about the tumble cardigan, however, is that I did not yet go on to do all of the embroidery. I was just embroideried out, I have to say. I don't think it's my craft. It's nice to do every once in a while, but I can't just sit and zone out doing it. So for now, I just have this pure white tumble cardigan, and I think this is really lovely. I think it's going to be perfect for spring, summer, when you just want to like fling something in your bag that you can wear over whatever it is that you're taking out for the day, and then you might get a bit chilly at night. So yeah, it'll be perfect for that. Anyway, that's the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the whole thing. Please tell me if any of this has inspired you to do something with a long-standing whip or a project that you don't wear that much. I'd really love to hear what you end up doing with those. And I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!